Hey everybody, welcome back to my layout. This will be a layout update video for July 2021. Let's take a look at what's new on the layout. So we'll start over here on the Banff Station. I'm continuing on the second floor of the building, and you can see from the opening shot there. So I've got the gable end walls done and mocked up there. You can see these two walls probably have the biggest impact on what this building looks like because they are the two kind of most prominent vertical walls on the building. So these are the trackside ones, obviously, and they are mounted on the styrene. So these are done and ready to assemble once I get the rest of the walls done. So you can see it's starting to look more realistic, and the more you add to it, it all starts to come together. And everything on this station is tied together with a gigantic roof, which is also lit by the sun. So once you'll have to picture, the roof comes at an angle, and it's about like that on the walls, and it engulfs basically everything. And the only thing that pokes out are these vertical walls on the gable ends, and there's about a 2-centimeter wall on the sides here where the balconies are for the two operator living quarters. So the other ones are a little different. Pictures I took at different times. It's kind of weird because the whole building will be sunlit. You can see both the east and the west side have shadows like they're sunlit. Doesn't matter though, because you can't physically look at this thing from either side. These ones turned out really well. So these are actually morning photos for the town side gable ends and afternoon photos from the curling rink with a telephoto. So I couldn't get as close because it's the track side of the station obviously is inaccessible. You can't go across the tracks, take photos. But I was able to get some okay shots using a telephoto lens without trespassing from the fence by the curling rink. So these ones are not as good as quality as the townside ones, because these townside ones I'm able to get right in there. You can stand under the door and take photos, so that's why these are so nice. But I like the reflection of the trees in the glass is just awesome. It looks really good. This one too, same deal. You can see some spruce trees, clouds reflected in the glass, and it's just printed paper. So the workbench is just covered with printed wall stuff that I'm doing to work on these station walls. The next ones I'm doing are the side walls, which are also part of the second floor. So you can see here I'm working away on it, and I had forgotten that the side walls actually have a tiny little gable end. I think it's just decorative really, but one window centered, so I had to go and add that little peak to this side. So these go on the railway east and west ends. And what I'm doing when I make these is you actually have to cut them out and physically try them to see what needs to be done to make them better. So this one, the window's good, but I need to do a bit more work. Of course, I forgot that I have to account for the two walls that will join here, which overlap. So the printed piece has to be an extra 2 millimeters long to cover that styrene on either end. So that's on the to-do list for this wall. Plus I'm going to do a little bit more using the clone tool to clean up this shadow in here and get rid of some of that roof line as well, just to make it a little bit better. So that's what I'm working on right now with those. I'll have the two end walls for those, and then once I get those done, there's another 6 pieces for each balcony on either side, trackside and town side. So tons of work, and basically photoshopping and creating images for these is really hard, especially these ones where you can't just get a broadside picture because there's the balconies blocking these, and you can't get up to the height of the second story to take these photos. So a lot of this has to be made in Corel Draw digitally. So slow process, but well worth it once you see the end result. So I did get one new thing for the layout, and it wasn't a piece of rolling stock or a locomotive. It was actually a anti-fatigue mat. I'm killing my feet standing here making trees on the concrete, and I finally had enough of that and found one of these ergonomic mats. So it's quite thick, like it's about an inch, maybe an inch and a half thick, and when you stand on it, oh man, that's nice. That's where it's at. So that'll hopefully make the tree making process a little less painful down here. So the only other thing I worked on was the transition where the backdrop meets the layout here on the pretty much the entire length of the Banff side. I had avoided doing anything with the terrain kind of 6 inches out from the backdrop because I was so worried about water wicking up into the printed backdrop and ruining it basically. I had done some tests over on an unfinished part of the layout where I just sprayed my wet water right up to the and just went for it, and it actually caused the backdrop to ripple. It didn't look bad, but it dried ripply, and I definitely didn't want to ruin my 32-foot long piece of paper printed backdrop. So I just stayed away from it. I didn't bother basically putting scenic cement in that 6 inches, and it was all the way from here at the road crossing all the way back to the staging loops. And I was just going to leave it. I was happy with it, good enough. You can kind of see a transition there where that's not glued stuff, it's just loose terrain, and then that's glued down and sanded and looks a lot better. And it's secure, it doesn't move around. But I came across a solution recently, and full credit to my friend Justin, whose layout you're quite familiar with, the Caramat Kinghorn Subs. He came up with a genius idea to very cleverly blend anywhere where you've got places where the backdrop's meeting, say a road, or in my case the parking lot here at Banff. And that is to use plasticine from Michaels. So it looks like this. I'll show the label here, but you can get this from Michaels. It comes in like a brick, and it's basically a clay. It has some kind of an oil component in it because it does not dry. This stuff just stays malleable its entire life, which is good for this purpose. So what I did was I went all along and I added, well, I worked it out, and it was maybe about, I don't know, ½ an inch in diameter, and I worked it in there, and it has two purposes. It keeps the backdrop held up against where you want it to, because the backdrop tends to want to curl out even if you've got tape or glue or whatever. And the second thing it does is it creates kind of a little lip. We might have to have some drawing time here and I'll show you, but it creates like this little ramp almost. I don't know if my verbal explanation really makes sense. So layout, wall, this is the problem with photo backdrop, is right here. Making this not be very apparent, or trying to blend it out so it doesn't catch your eye. I had kind of found a little bit of a workaround where I had some really good double-sided tape that I was able to stick down here, and that held it pretty good, but it didn't solve the problem of not being able to spray scenery cement right up to here. So basically Justin's idea was to take the plasticine and build a ramp like this. So this is color in the plasticine, and that's what I've done on my layout now. All along that edge, and it's about 30 feet long, is like that. And then you come in with your scenery material like this, pour it down, and I just hold a piece of plastic like this, and then I can spray water right on this, and you will not have any issues with it wicking up. And you can color it, so then you can blend out the backdrop even better. So super good idea. This is the clay. Got it from Michaels. It's a Craft Smart Plastilina modeling clay. This is my little mixing station here. You can see I have some of the kids' sidewalk chalk, because that works too to help tint it. And the first half I was working it in, adding grout to this. This tile grout. This was the color I was using to make a varying shades of gray. New taupe. This is great stuff. It's cheap. I think it was about 15 bucks for this whole thing, and you've got a box basically of weathering chalk. And you can use different shades, like I was saying, and then I would just work it in. And my hands were so sore after that first 15 feet. I just decided to just put it on as it comes, and then I go with the brush after, and then I brush the chalk on. And that seems to work as good. And you can always go back and add more chalks if you need to. So another example of using the chalk once the white clay is in place. You can see here on the backdrop there's a couple places of brown, really dark brown grass, so I went in with some darker brown. It really helps create the illusion that there isn't a 90-degree joint right there. So then looking this way, you can see I've been able to go and do my scenery, and I haven't had any instances of the water wicking up and ruining my backdrop, which is awesome. So always a good idea to test everything before you do it on the real deal. So you can see my test strips here. I had the strip of that modeling clay laid out, And then I actually just tried putting a piece on the backdrop to see what it would do, and it did leave a bit of an oil stain there. So you want to make sure that you're not putting it anywhere besides the very bottom, because it will leave a bit of a grease stain on that paper. So good idea to always have a test bed where you can try out your theories before you go and do it on the real thing, because changing out that backdrop is not an option. So that catches us up to today, guys. I hope you're having an awesome summer. Enjoy the rest of it. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.